Hey guys, it's Kira with another Fringe recap. It was a really good episode, but really disgusting. So, don't eat while you're watching this, because, yeah. So, this is Season 2, Episode 9, and it's called Snakehead. Okay, so it starts off with this, really, distressed and upset Asian man, running through Chinatown, asking for, Ping On Street, and he's all, crying, and they're like, oh, Ping On Street, and then he finally finds this little door, and he rings the doorbell, and then this guy answers, and he walks in, he's like, oh, did the others make it? And he's like, no, you're the first one. It's this other, older Asian man, and he's like, they're dead, they're all dead, and he's like, oh, come here, lie down, because his, stomach is hurting or something, so he lies down, and he's, screaming and crying, and he's like, oh, my stomach hurts, what's happening to me, I need help, and then, suddenly, the other Asian man, pulls out these tools and stuff, and then he cuts open his shirt, and there's this big lump, on his chest, and it moves, upwards, and then this big, giant, worm thing protrudes from his mouth, and it was so disgusting. It had, all these tentacles, coming out, and, it was, screeching. It was really, really gross. So then it goes to, the Dorchester Bay Inlet, and Peter and Olivia are at this shipyard, and Walter comes out of this cab, and he's like, you follow me, and he's like, no, Walter, we're going to the same place, because, in this episode a lot, it's kind of about Walter's independence, kind of, because, he's not in the institution anymore, and he wants to, be able to go somewhere without them following him, but that's another story for later. So, then they're at the shipyard, and, supposedly, there's all these dead bodies around, and they're, all these immigrants that tried to swim to shore, but they didn't make it, and a few bodies looked normal, but a bunch of the others had the same, big worm thing that came out of their mouths, and, they've got all this blood on their mouth, and then Walter goes and, pulls this, 4-foot long one out, and, he says it's similar to a parasite that is found in livestock. So, they bring it back to the lab, and then, these rescuers are like, oh, there's another one, then they're, pulling it out of the water, and it's this woman, and she's still alive, so they take her to the hospital, and then, they find out her name is Mei Lin, and, they have to use this translator, but they're talking to her, and she says that, they found out that she wasn't infected because on the boat that she was on, they were giving everyone these capsules for seasickness, and she was the only one who didn't take one, so that's probably why, because, the larvae was inside the capsules, so Peter and Olivia tell Walter about what happened and how, she was the only one who didn't take the capsule, and he's like, that makes perfect sense, blah, 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 because they're using the immigrants as, human incubators for the larvae, so they grow inside them, and then they kind of, come out, but, yeah, the larvae can fit inside the capsule, so when you take the capsule and ingest it, and then you know the rest. It's kind of I forgot what number episode it was, but that one episode with, it was Season 1, Episode 10, Bound, where, Mitchell Loeb makes all those, slugs that, you make the powder, and then you put it in water, and then to digest it, it rips through your esophagus and kills you. But this is kind of different because it's medicinal purposes, but we'll find that out later. So, then they find out they're being used for some sort of human incubator, and then it goes back to the older Asian man who, killed the other dude and cut open his shirt and all that. And he has this little, the little worm thing, and he cuts into it and, takes out this weird little, organ thing, and then he pours this powder onto some wax paper and then folds it up into, this envelope and puts this little seal on it with these symbols on it, but, we don't know what that is. So then, back at FBI headquarters, there's this man who's in questioning, and he's like this big Asian dude with all these tattoos, and while they're outside, he's sitting in there with like the handcuffs and whatnot. Like they're talking, and Peter looks at like the tattoos on him. There's like one on his arm and one on his chest, and one means that he killed 5 people, and the other is like for smuggling heroin or something, but not like humans or anything, so it's kind of weird and everything. But they're like gang tattoos, so they're talking and, oh, what does this mean and stuff, but then they're like, oh my gosh, he's got a razor blade, and he spits this little razor blade out of his mouth, and like, I don't know how, but somehow he was like using his handcuffs, and he slits his own throat, and then they run in, they're like, no! And like he smiles, and then like there's this, all this blood on his neck, and it's like dripping, and so he killed himself, yeah. So then, back at the lab in Harvard, you know, they're experimenting with the worms, and then, like, he's holding it, and Astrid's, like, trying to, like, you know, get something out of it with a syringe, and then she's like, oh, okay, I got it, and so he's holding it and talking to her, and then suddenly, like, bites down on his arm, and Astrid's like, oh my gosh, Walter, and stuff, and he's like, wait, it's kind of pleasant. I don't know how that is pleasant, but it was, like, biting on him, and then finally she got it off, and stuff, so, and, yeah, I'm gonna move on to part 2 now. See ya!